everything that he has done over the years from a long time ago all the way up to present time. He's still relevant because he's good at what he does and he helps others along the way as well. We're going to get into all of that. The man that I'm talking about, of course, is AKA Chip Douglas. That's right. From My Three Sons. That would be the one and only Stan Livingston. And we're going to bring him in live satellite from Los Angeles, and we'll bring him in right about now. So let's pop him in there. Stan, can you hear me? Are you there?
I'm here, Greg. How you doing?
Good afternoon, sir. How's it going out in LA?
It's good weather. Our rain just finally went away. We had a week of rain.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to have that. Yeah, it's been kind of back and forth here as well in the New York, New Jersey area. So you heard your intro there, and I'm pretty sure that that's as accurate as I mean, everybody. And we've talked about this before. We'll let it everybody and our listeners and everything in on it. I mean, constantly for your whole life. Obviously, you were Chip Douglas, and that's not the worst thing that I guess that you could be. But does that ever get old? Like, hey, Chip Douglas, or like, do you ever get sick of that, or no? You're okay.
Well, well, it could have been worse. I could have been the beef. And just to make sure everybody knows who I am, I'm not Ernie. Ernie's the one with the glasses, but he doesn't wear them anymore, and now I do. So, yeah.
No, well, no, I mean that's and you're talking a while ago. I mean, My Three Sons obviously is a classic, obviously classic, and you're a humongous part of that. And the fact that there might be people out there that have no idea what My Three Sons is, or oh, that's something that I saw on the internet or something, and you're like, oh boy. But I just remember as growing up and watching it because that ended and it ran from 1960 to 72. Am I correct? Or no?
That was the original prime time run. Yeah. 60 through probably by the time the last episodes aired, it was 73. It immediately went into syndication for about 15 years, meaning it was playing every day, but on daytime TV. And then this thing called Nick at Night came along and decided to take our old black and white episodes from the first 4 years and see if they could find a new audience with them. And it did. And Nick at Night became a big deal at purveying all these old, iconic, classic TV shows. And 10 years later, they added TV Land, which went for 10 years, and they started running our color episodes. So, and since then, it's, been on a myriad of networks. And currently, it's on MeTV. It's been on there every morning for about 10 years. We're on Pluto, we're on Amazon Prime, and we are on Decade. So it's on
Wow.
more now than it was back then.
Yeah, I was
Go
gonna say,
figure.
yeah, that's yeah, I mean, if somebody doesn't know what that is by now, well, they must be under a rock somewhere because it's obviously everywhere and anywhere. Plus, of course, YouTube for clips and that kind of thing. But this we're talking about syndication from day one that just took off. There was no interim, there was no in between, which that's got to be good for you.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
Now, out of
yeah.
the original cast, obviously everybody knows Fred McMurray, and obviously they knew you. I mean, these people, obviously, some of them are still with us, and some of them are not. Is it more that like when you go to a convention or people and you were in other things and Leave It to Beaver. I mean, there was all these different things, and you've made cameos and you've done so many things, which we're going to get to all that. But is that what you're most proud of? Because that was your start. Is that true?
Yeah, it's probably what I'm most proud of. And I mean, I had days and years where I, kind of bemoaned the fact that I was on it. But to be honest, after looking at other people's lives who were either popular or famous for a TV show, the bottom line is that's going to be my epitaph. I saw what happened to Fred McMurray, who was a much bigger movie star than I'll ever be. He was in over 100 movies,
Wow.
many of them classic films. And then he finally did My Three Sons. And when he passed away back in 1991, the only thing it mentioned was it said played the quintessential father on the long running TV series My Three Sons. So
So
I'm
here,
sure my fate is going to be the same.
well, you know what? Please. I mean, we don't even want to think about that. The world does not. The world needs Chip Douglas in it. Come on, but the way I
Well,
see it is that you've always had, uh, I mean, and you grew up in that industry,
I did. Yeah, I
you know?
started when I was 4 years old. So, and kept going ever since then. Did early TV and got a reoccurring role on Ozzie and Harriet. I was on that for 4 years as a neighborhood kid, did other TV shows, pilots, did a lot of movies back then, and, landed the role of Chip Douglas on My Three Sons in 1959. We did the pilot, went on the air in 1960, and here we are almost 64 years later, and it's
Yeah, we're
still
talking
playing
about it
every
now.
week.
That's crazy, but it's good. It's a
That is
cool
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm proud of it. I mean, the idea that a show could stick around that long, still some of the same people watching, but it's managed to.
I watch it.
It's like a hand-me-down TV show is what it is. It's like a treasured thing in a family, and you hand it down. For some reason, our show resonated with the original audience, who handed it down to their kids, who've handed it down to their kids, who've handed so we're probably on great grandkids by now watching the show, and yeah, that's really something.
I don't know if well, we're almost there, Stan, but please don't rush it, man. I mean, you and I are like, every time they move up a notch, we have to move up a notch. You know what I mean? So I'm happy where I am right now, and I'm
Yeah, well,
very excited to have you here, though, sir. I appreciate it because
oh, thanks, thanks.
I
Yeah,
I
it's not.
grew up watching you.
Yeah,
We all did.
yeah. So many people grew up watching that show. I had no idea of that. I lived in Hollywood,
You did.
probably the first half of my life, and lived in the Valley, which is, contiguous with Hollywood. It's just 3 or 4 miles away. For the better part of my life, so it's different kind of people there. People still watch My Three Sons, but it was nothing like when I would go out of town, go back east, go do a show or a convention. I had no idea that, how loved the show was till I really got out there and met fans outside of LA. I mean,
Yeah, and
people
you didn't
just
even realize that, it was gonna
had
be as
no
big
idea.
as it was. I mean, it's hard to gauge it, I would assume.
It is, especially if you live in LA. We're blasé there. We walk around and you see TV stars and movie stars all the time, and people are like, so what? But
Yeah, well, you're
if
used to it
you're
from
in Kansas City or St. Louis or something else, and people recognize you, they let you know it's a big deal.
That's what we used to do when I worked at QAM down in Florida, and we would have, like, constantly, like, the Miami Dolphins, like, all of a sudden, Dan Marino would walk by or, Jim Manager, any of the 72 Dolphins. We saw that every day, them walking through, like, the different places and
Hmm.
stuff like that, but like you said, it's almost the same similar thing. You're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Or you saw, like, Henry Winkler at a Ralph's in LA, which I have, and, "Hey, how
Yeah.
you doing?" I don't get starstruck. I've met enough people, but occasionally, you think about it and you're doing your thing, you're like, "That's kinda cool, Fonzie standing up there," like stuff
Yeah.
like that.
We greet each other and say hello and how you been, what have you been doing? But, for the most part, we're just leading our lives, dealing with toilets overflowing and mowing backyards. It's
Regular people
just like
stuff.
everybody else's life. Yeah, it's no different. The work makes people think, we're out here partying 24 hours a day. It's nothing
You're
like
human
that.
beings, I mean, come on. Now the picture that I have up on the screen there, obviously,
Hmm.
is that from season 1 or that's a little bit later, right?
No, that's a little bit later. Yeah, when I was younger, I had one. Thinking I'm about 14 there, where when I started, I was 9. So we're probably about 4 or 5 years.
That
The
wasn't but the
fact that Barry's there, it's got to be at least season 3, 4. Tim's not there, so I'm saying it's season 4. So about
did the
1964.
okay, so 64 and it started around 60. Did the cast change that much or
Yes.
it did? That's kinda what I thought.
Yeah, I was going to say the only people that were on the series the entire 12 seasons was Fred McMurray and myself. People
Very
left.
simple.
Bill Frawley left. Tim Considine, who played the older brother Mike, left. My brother Barry came onto the show playing a friend of mine, and when Tim Considine left, and he was, didn't want to be on the show anymore. My brother, who was playing my friend, suddenly became the third son. We needed a third son in a hurry. William Frawley, who was there the first
Did
three,
you say
four
that was your
years.
I'm sorry, Stan, did you say that was your brother? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, the guy in the glasses holding the footballs, my
That
real
is your
brother.
little brother.
Yeah,
I
Barry
didn't even realize
Livingston.
it.
Yeah, yeah, he came on. And, it wasn't a nepotism thing. By then, my brother had done probably 20, 25 TV shows. He'd done about 4 or 5 big movies. He did a movie with Jackie Gleason called Papa's Delicate Condition. He was in The
God, I
Errand
love
Boy with Jerry Lewis.
yeah.
He did My Six Lives with Debbie Reynolds. So, he was a known quantity and started working on the show as a neighborhood kid. He was in my classroom, although that I never understood. Either he was very smart or I was very stupid. I don't know which, because
"What are you
there's
doing here?"
obviously an age disparity there.
Yeah, just
But
a little one.
for me personally, it was great that Barry came on the show because I was in an adult world until he came there. Everybody that I worked with was the adult actors, and the crew members were all in their 30s, 40s, 70s. So to have somebody my age, we ride bikes, play baseball, football, do things kids, teenagers do. So yeah, he was a welcome addition to the show as far as I was concerned. Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
and plus
There's
he's
Jimmy
they
Stewart.
I was just about to ask. So this is obviously that's Fred McMurray, and you're standing right there. But you have what was that one? Because I mean, everybody loves Jimmy Stewart, but what was that one?
Yeah, that episode was well, Tim in real life reached the age where we had the selective service back then. You had to sign up for active duty. He
Right.
ended up in the Air Force Reserve. And somehow they kind of wove that into the plot line with Mike being in the Air Force and he'd have his uniform on sometimes. And in real life, Fred McMurray knew Jimmy Stewart, and he was out there trying to get people to join the Air Force. And they wrote an episode where he appeared in the show and was Mike's commanding officer. And you know, I don't want to say nepotism, but they were good friends and I believe neighbors in Brentwood. So that's how that came to be.
That's so cool that you actually could say that you met. I mean, we're not talking about just anyway. I mean, there's like maybe a handful or two of people that are like elites. To me,
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart is he's an elite. I mean, he is. It's a Wonderful Life. You know what I mean? Like he's just and
Yeah.
there you are. And I have another picture too. That this one obviously is going to be from whoever never heard of a Bonanza. I have to go hit him in the head with a tack hammer because everybody remembers Bonanza. This is now that's Haas right there. That's you.
Yeah,
Explain this
that's
picture because that's so cool. You
we're on either side of a very large Subway sandwich there.
yeah.
Yeah, how that came about was both shows were sponsored by Chevrolet. My Three Sons,
Right.
Chevrolet was our original sponsor. Yeah, Bonanza had Chevrolet, and I think it was by my age. I'm thinking about 1963. We did this kind of very unusual commercial. It was 5 minutes long, which was unheard of. Most commercials back then were the 30-second spots, 60
Yeah, they
second
were
spots.
short. Yeah.
But what they did is they took the entire cast from Bonanza, mixed it with the entire cast of My Three Sons and the two guys from Route 66, and we all converged and we had a picnic and they introduced the 1963, 64 lineup of Chevrolets. And anyway,
63
there
and
was somebody
64.
that, yeah, like Fred McMurray he was hanging out with Lauren Green. I was hanging out with Haas. Robbie was hanging out with Michael Landon.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. So they kind of paired us off to, make it a little more intimate. And so obviously Haas and I were interested in the food, and that's how that shot came about.
That's actually I mean, that's a classic photo. I hadn't seen that one for a extremely long time. Then I saw it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope Stan okays this one because this one rocks. I'm like, nah, this is come on, that's cool as hell.
Yeah,
You're
he
sitting
was
there
a
with
cool guy. Yeah, I met him doing that, and then we became friends, and they were shooting next door to us, meaning next door to Desilu was Paramount Studios.
Paramount, right?
And yeah, he'd come over and visit me sometimes, and I go over and visit him. We go have lunch in the commissary. In fact, there's even a more famous picture of Dan Walker and I together. I'm wearing his hat, which is like a 20-gallon hat, probably, and barely fits on my head. I look like a toadstool under it. But
No kidding.
it ended up Chevrolet had a magazine, I guess, that went out to everybody who bought a Chevrolet back then. Some marketing tool. And Dan and I were on the cover of it, and he's got my hat, and I'm trying to put his hat on. So anyway, I think the magazine was called Friends. It's somewhere out there in the universe, but
I know
yeah,
it's definitely cool. So and I just remember, like I said, we grew up. There were certain staples of television back there for people
yeah.
that might or might not know it. So as I was a little kid in the '70s and everything, but I remember, and it's that constant. Da-na-na-na. I think you've heard the song before, Stan. I
Oh
mean, this
yeah, I've
is
heard it,
part of like
but
when you wake up, right?
it's like Bonanza. Dun, 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 dun,
Oh my
dun, dun.
god.
Everybody we have these. theme songs imprinted in our brains. So it's
Yeah, it's
probably
ingrained
at the end of
forever.
your life, you're going to be hearing that. It'll still be there as you're checking
Could be
out. Yeah.
worse, right? I mean, it could have been Green Acres and you're really screwed. You would have had
Hey,
that every morning.
listen, at least ours didn't have lyrics. I just thank God I wasn't in Mr. Ed. Had to hear that.
Right. Oh my god, the talking horse. Yeah, no, I don't think I would have lasted very long like that. But I wanted to mention for the people that are listening in on WGAT, not only that would be watching it later on YouTube and other venues, but you obviously that's how you started and you landed that role. You were from Cal, you're a California kid. You land the role.
Well, it
And
actually
you're
wasn't how I started. That was about 5 years later after I started. There was a lot of work that came before that. I actually started when I was 4 years old. I went to a swim school in Hollywood, and there was an agent there that took a liking to me. And, I guess she thought I had a cute look, and I was very extroverted and could talk to adults. And I think she liked that quality in me, talked my mom into representing me, sent me out on some things, and like all actors, I didn't get a part immediately. I got sent out and got cast as an extra on, I don't know, it could have been 5, 10 different shows. I had no line of dialogue, and eventually I got cast as an extra on an episode of Ozzie and Harriet. And it was an episode where he was selling Christmas trees in his backyard to make extra money. And the joke was it looked like a forest of trees, and who walks out? A bunch of little
yeah,
kids camping in it, and he has this flummoxed look on his face. And anyway, we shot it 2 or 3 times, and
sorry about
suddenly
that.
he said to me, he said, I want you to say this line. So he told me what to say, and he said, I'm going to put an X on the floor. When you hit this X, don't look down at it, just look at me and say the line. And the line
And
was
you're
sure
how
was
old at the time? How old were you when you did
I was probably about 6. Yeah,
and you were
yeah,
taking cues at 6 years old without much I
taking
mean, you didn't go to
cues. Well, when he said, "You're gonna have a line," I'll say this line, I didn't even know what he was talking about, and I hit this mark. I learned very quickly what a line was, and I learned how to hit a mark, and we shot it a couple times, and I remember he pulled the camera, he pushed it in closer to me, and we did it again, and I realized later he was getting my close up, and at the end of the day, he went up to my mom, and I guess I did okay because he said, "Leave your your contact information with my secretary, and I'd like to have Stan back." And true to his word, probably a couple months later, I was back again, and this time I had a bunch of dialogue. And I was able to join the Screen Actors Guild. So that really got me going. And
at
after
6 years
that,
old?
I got a bunch of movies. Yeah, I did the Bonnie Parker story, Rally Around the Flag Boys with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward as my parents. I did another movie after that called Please Don't Eat the Daisies. And in that movie, I
Remember
was
that one.
Doris Day and David Niven's son. And then I got a TV pilot. There was a guy directing a show across from Ozzie and Harriet, and I used to wander over to their set occasionally because they had a dog over there that was a character on the show, and I was dog crazy when I was a kid, still am. And
Yes, we
this
know.
guy came up to me one day in a suit, and I thought I was in trouble. He said, "Who are you?" And I told him who I was, shook his hand, and then we'd sit and talk for probably about 10 minutes. And finally, he said, "I'd like to meet your mom." And I remember asking him, I said, "So, am I in trouble?" And he goes, "No, no, you're not in trouble." So he goes, "But I would like to meet your mom." So we went over to Ozzie and Harriet's set. I introduced him to my mom, and I had no idea who the guy was. I kind of walked away because I figured I was in trouble. I'll just stay out of view. And about 15 minutes later, he left. And anyway, what I didn't know is the guy who came over was Jackie Cooper, who was
Oh
starring
my
in the
god.
TV series next door called The People's Choice. He was one of the original Our Gang, and he was a child star. He was in The Champ, the original Champ with Wallace Berry. He was in a movie called Skippy in 1934 when he was about 8 or 9, for which he got nominated, and I believe he won an Academy Award. And to this
Wow.
date, he's still the youngest person in a leading role for an Academy Award. So somehow he saw something of himself in me, went away, wrote a pilot, a TV pilot based on the movie Skippy for me to star in. And in 19, guess it was the end of 1958, because I had just turned 8 years old, I starred in this TV pilot with my name above the title. And Anyway, it was a real showpiece because I had all the dialogue and, I was the featured character. The
And you were
pilot
able
never
to
sold.
I'm sorry, no, I was just gonna say 'cause of the delay, I apologize. You were able to retain lines at 6 years old, take marks, take
Yeah,
direction, and you're like
yeah,
6, 7 years old, and
yeah.
did you find that to be difficult, or did it come naturally that
No,
to
not at all. It
recall?
just kind of came naturally to me. I guess I had a good memory. I could just look at stuff a couple times and then go do it. And, yeah, well, the Skippy, literally there's the, 2 people that played my parents in it, my mom, my dad, best friend, but I had the other half of the dialogue, and some of it was pretty complicated emotionally stuff,
Right.
and, for whatever reason, he thought I could do it, and I did it, and well,
For some
the
reason.
upside of it was the pilot never went, and I was under contract to Jackie for about 3 years after we did this, and, about 59, I think it was. We got a hold of the pilot. I still never had seen it, but my agent got it and would submit it when I was up for a part to show that I could, rise to the occasion. Anyway, at the end of 59, near the end of 59, the pilot went to some people who were casting for another TV series to be called My Three Sons. And anyway, they saw the pilot and immediately wanted me for the role of Chip Douglas. The other thing that was happening then was there were some people, I was up for a movie based on Huckleberry Finn. And my agent at that particular point in time, the lady who discovered me was killed in an auto accident, and I had no agent. My parents had to find another agent very quickly. And anyway, we didn't know what to choose,
Terrible.
the movie or My Three Sons. And yeah, we were kind of in shock because of losing this lady named Tina Hill. And, yeah, so my new agent that I got said, "Nope, you should do the TV series. You do the movie, it might be a one-shot deal, but, the
Right.
series has the potential maybe to go a couple seasons." So she chose that. That's how I got the role of Chip Douglas, based on the work I had done in Skippy, and, it took them a little bit longer to fill out the cast. They decided to hire Tim Considine, who Fred MacMurray worked with over at Disney on The Shaggy Dog. Don Grady was just kind of, coming into being. He
Great.
was a Mouseketeer. They eventually cast him as the middle son, and then the prize of all prizes was getting William Frawley, Fred Mertz from I Love Lucy to play the
Right, Fred
grandfather.
Mertz.
So, yeah, I just was so in love with that idea because I used to stay home, pretend I was sick when I was a kid so I could watch I Love Lucy, and he was my favorite character. I just always liked those grouchy old guys. So when I found out he was going to be on the show as my grandfather, I was more than elated. And so that was the cast, the whole idea behind My Three Sons, which was unusual for that time period. There were a lot of family shows, but it was a husband and wife with either, daughters and sons, just kind of a mixed family. Well, the idea behind this was it was an all male household. It was a bachelor dad, a widower, who was trying to raise 3 boys, with a grandfather. So it was an all-male household, which was unusual for that time, and it kinda tugged at the sympathy strings in women. They all wanted to mother us to death because of, that situation, and the show went on, was an immediate hit, and, back then, there was only 3 networks, so if you had an audience, you had probably somewhere between 40 to 60 million people watching you a week.
We had,
Um
ABC, NBC, CBS, that was it, right?
That was it, yeah. Well, our show started on ABC in the first 4 years were ABC. I think they got tired of the show, and they may have been worried because of Bill Frawley having passed and bringing in William Demarest to play the grandfather and replaced, him. And the show was, originally in black and white, and they just didn't think at the 4th year was worth spending the money on us to make it a color show.
Yeah, when did it switch over
And
to color, by the way?
it
Yeah.
the same year we switched over to CBS. They wanted us, and they wanted to continue with the show. They bought it from ABC. We went color. Tim Considine went out of the show that year. He didn't want to do any more episodes. Bill Frawley had just left, so we brought in William Demarest as Uncle Charlie. And then the show continued on like that. And a couple years
You're
later,
talking
they added Barry on as a son.
65 we're talking about, right? That's when it went to color in that area, 65, 60
Yeah,
something like that.
1965, right, yeah, because
65,
Tim
65.
did the first episode of 1965, and Then he left the show. Never
All right.
heard from him again. Guess he went into the Twilight Zone or something.
Maybe. Some people are still there. All right, I'm gonna play this clip real quick. This is the 1971 syndication one. They call it the Fred McMurray greeting. So let's check this out. If it feels like connecting.
The
Sometimes it
wonderful
does, and
world of the
sometimes it
internet.
doesn't.
Hi, welcome to our show.
Yeah, like I said, you've probably have heard that one before.
Yeah, it
And that
seems speeded up compared to the earlier years. That's definitely a different orchestration.
right
I
now
guess
this
I
is
just never paid any attention to it until now.
one was taking longer, one was shorter. Now, I don't think there's any difference between that and this one. It seems to be almost the same amount. You would be the one to ask, I guess, that if this one is different from the one that we just had and how it's different. 'Cause this one I think is a little shorter.
I hear it.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
are. They stuck that
I
in.
can hear the difference. I can tell you the difference right away. The piano backbeat is definitely more prevalent in that rendition of it than the one you played later. It's
Okay.
interesting because if you listen to the piano, the backbeat is
Yeah.
chopsticks. The guy that wrote it,
Oh,
you know,
the
he,
yeah.
pr- he,
Dun,
pro-
dun,
yeah, he
dun, dun.
probably got the assignment to come up with a something for a TV show, kind of like a marching band sound. And he must have got stuck and sitting there at his piano and started playing chopsticks. And all of a sudden got this, idea for a theme song or, the melody line in his head and applied it over chopsticks, and that's what you got.
Yeah, I mean, that's as basic as it gets, right? Chopsticks is like the
It does.
absolute, first thing that you ever learn when you're,
Well, the guy
notes.
that wrote it was a pretty big composer. His name was Frank Duvall, and I believe he did the music for like Green Acres and
Mhm.
like
That's
Beverly
it.
Hillbillies and those kind of shows. He also did Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, the
Oh,
music
no
to
kidding.
that. Yeah, yeah, he
That
was
was,
pretty
Betty Davis,
prolific.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Betty Davis. Yeah.
Alright. So that's a major one. Now you were in My Three Sons, obviously. Going forward after that, so now you're into I guess we're in the early 70s now, or not even, let's say 1968, 69, 70. Okay. And that was the culture of what was going on in the country and everything else. What did you go from that gets picked up immediately and goes, okay, great.
Hmm.
So Stan Livingston's continuously working at a young age without any break in between, which is really not that prevalent, where there's a
Yeah.
gap most of the time. Now, you didn't have that happen to you. What was the very next thing that you did that was a major, like that was uh, prime time, I would say, like network.
Well, it wasn't because while we were doing My Three Sons, we were never allowed to do other people's television shows, so that
Oh,
was out.
really? No, I
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah,
know that.
that's why if you look at all my peers, Jay North, John Provost, all these different child actors who grew up and their show ended and they went on, all appeared and did guest spots on a lot of TV shows. Well, I never could do that because I was tied to my three sons. The worry always was you can't do it because they could have a sponsor. We had Chevrolet. What if they had Oldsmobile? That would be a huge problem. So in those days, yeah, we were precluded from doing any other TV shows. We were allowed to do movies. 1960, I think it was one or two. I did a movie with a guy. It was sort of a similar thing who came down to look at me on the set of My Three Sons, unbeknownst to me, and he was going to be making a movie on the same lot, the Desilu lot. And this a director named Richard Donner. And he came down, looked, called my agent, and I got hired to be in a movie with Charles Bronson. and the movie's
Oh,
called
no kidding.
X-15. Yeah, it was me, Charles Bronson. I believe it was Mary Tyler Moore's first movie, and it was Richard
Damn.
Donner's first movie as a director. And we really hit it off, and we're lifelong friends after that. And it was fun working with Charles Bronson. I'd seen him in
Well,
a
I was
few
gonna say,
things.
what was that like? What take us to what year we're talking about for the
I
people that don't.
believe it was either 61 or 62 that happened.
Okay, so this is before the Dirty Dozen and all the okay,
Yeah,
so this
yeah,
is
yeah. The thing that I was familiar, he had a TV series. It's pretty obscure that maybe a lot of people don't remember. It was called Man with a Camera, and for whatever reason, I liked that show, and I liked him, and
for
found
whatever
out
reason.
yeah, was going to be on that show. But it was before he was death wishing people, and you know.
Oh, don't get me wrong, him and Clint Eastwood, man, they were, like, my favorites, or, when
Oh,
I was
me
little.
too.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. So, yeah, it was before The Great Escape, and
Mhm,
what
yeah,
was the other before that was The Magnificent Seven. So,
Magnificent Seven, right, yeah, that, then you had
yeah,
the Dirty Dozen was, I think, in
yeah,
'67?
yeah,
Uh,
that was later. But yeah, he hit pay dirt, kind
oh,
of
man.
early on. This was before he was known, but immediately after that, I believe he did the Magnificent Seven, which got him the part in The Great Escape, and he just kept going on
The
from
Great Escape.
there.
These are all
As
classic movies, by the way. I mean, if for people that might or might not know that these are every one that you're touching on is just classic, classic.
Right,
I
right.
mean, they are.
Well, I hit even bigger pay dirt a couple of years after that. The whole reason I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid was to be in westerns. I learned how to ride a horse when I was very young. When I was 6, 7 years old, I could ride a horse. Of course, I never real gun. I had a cap gun, and I just wanted to be a cowboy star. Well, my agent never got me in a Western. All my friends, Johnny Crawford got into the Rifleman. All my friends would do like Laramie, Wagon Train. Not me. I didn't get any Western. The only
No
thing
way.
that I got at the inception of my career was I got a Roy Rogers commercial. So I thought I was on the right trajectory to become a Western
I would have
star.
thought that that would be cool, though. I mean,
It,
come on.
it was, yeah. He was very nice, and
Roy
he was
Rogers.
selling a Roy Rogers toy lariat. So he's spinning
Come
his
on.
lariat, I'm spinning mine. He loops me or lassos me and pulls me over to him, and that was the commercial. But I, got Ozzie and Harriet's. I did a bunch of TV shows back in that area. Ozzie and Harriet, but no westerns. So finally, in
No Western.
'63, at the end of '63, I got a casting call. My agent got a call from a director, and they wanted to see me for a part. Guess what? In a western. So I went
Mm.
out on it, and the director and I we hit it off, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy. And I got cast in like probably the greatest western ever made, if there is such thing. It's a western called How the West Was Won.
Wow,
And
that's
it was a
right.
cinerama film. It wasn't just an ordinary 35 millimeter film. It was shot in 30 in cinerama process, which means it's 3 times as
Really?
wide as the screen. Yeah, it
Right.
literally went from your periphery vision on one side to the other side. And I was cast as George Peppard, Carolyn Jones' son in it, and Debbie Reynolds was going to be my great
Debbie
aunt.
Reynolds. Oh my god, that's
I
right.
had
You're
I had a scene in that movie with Eli Wallach, so
oh my god, that
I
for him,
know,
every time I think of him, it's The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I mean, I can't stop but thinking the
yeah.
spaghetti westerns that.
I think back for I remember him from Baby Doll with Carol Baker, who was also in the movie. But yeah, the
Debbie Reynolds, Eli
reason,
Wallach, these are heavy hitters, Stan. I mean, these are
well,
not like,
this heavy hitters, but I mean they weren't,
yeah.
I mean they were big, but the stars of this movie were Jimmy Stewart, was Henry Fonda, Gregory Peck. I
Wow.
mean, it was just everybody who was anybody at that
How the
particular
West was
period of
won.
time was in that movie. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're in that with you got Gregory Peck, Jimmy
Hmm.
Stewart, Debbie
Henry Fonda.
Reynolds,
Yep,
Henry Fonda.
yep.
I mean, just
Yeah, Debbie Reynolds, Carol
yeah.
Baker, Carl Malden. I mean, everybody who was
Carl
just
Malden.
a top actor in Hollywood at that time wanted to be in that movie, and said
Yeah, well, he
okay.
was in, On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando, and that's how I was introduced well, actually, the way I was introduced to him was the American Express card guy, "Don't leave home empty" commercials, because I that was
Right.
the '70s, but movie-wise,
Yeah.
yeah, he'll always be the priest Yeah,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, you have whatever you remember these actors for, you know, for me, Jimmy Stewart's still the man who shot Liberty Valance is probably
Yeah.
they didn't have a kid in that, but I would have loved to have been in that movie and, you know, got shot out by,
Stan's on the
I
phone.
think
He
it was
said, "Do
Lee
you need a
Marvin.
kid? Do you need a kid? Because Stan is available." And, well, you got your Western. That was
Yeah,
something that you wanted. It was on your list, and you got it.
I got it, and like I
Yeah.
said, to me, it's probably one of the greatest Western. They still play it. What's
Sure,
happening
I've seen
right
it.
now is the Cinerama Theater in Hollywood called the ArcLight Cinerama
Mhm.
Theater.
Right.
You know, they built it, and it became an historical building because it is a dome, and it's all these parts that fit together to make this enormous cavernous dome, and that's where they show the Cinerama films. But starting in 2012, they were having a Cinerama festival every year, and they would show how the West is won. The Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm was shot in Cinerama process. There were a couple other movies that were shot later in what was called Cinerama, but they had gone to widescreen by then. So it
Yeah.
was a 70 millimeter anamorphic process, but it still covered the same width on the screen as the three cameras and three projectors did for Cinerama process. But they made Mad 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 World. Um, One of the
Oh,
other
yeah.
ones,
What a great Spencer Tracy and oh, yeah.
yeah, right, that was pretty cool. Yeah, there's a
And that
couple
was
other movies shot that way too.
that was considered, like, top of the line, cutting edge technology back then. I mean, that,
Well, it
like,
was.
right.
What people don't realize is before Cinerama, which actually came out around 53, 54, but they were so technically difficult to shoot, so onerous to
Yeah.
edit because we had to edit three piles of film because each pile represented one of the panels, one third of the screen of what you were seeing. So yeah, it was very, very tough shoots. But they were kind of done as travel logs initially because the people that owned the process were more engineers than they were filmmakers. And it wasn't until the Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm that somebody thought, wow, you know, I wonder if we could bring a lot of people into the theater. If we didn't shoot, you know, one of these where you would travel to Egypt and travel log type of films, but actually did a real, you know, dramatic film and a narrative in it. And they did that and it was pretty successful. And then they attempted it again with How the West Is Won, and that became the last Cinerama film shot in that process. But what it did is it opened theaters back up because people were dropping off and starting to go to TV and thinking, you know, movies are getting kind of boring, but this whole process and then seeing a film in such a wide screen at that point
Right.
really put a lot of butts back in seats in movie theaters.
Brought it
So
back to life, right,
it
everybody wanted
did.
to flock to the theater, "Let's check out this brand new,
Right.
thing that's the cutting edge technology," or and there you go.
Yeah, well, what they
Alright.
had to figure out was how to get it out of this three camera situation to get that width. And they finally figured out you could use a single camera, shoot in a widescreen anamorphic super 70 millimeter process. And it gave you virtually the same thing. So, yeah.
I guess they just came out with it and they said, "You know what? We'll figure the rest of this out later. Let's just boot this out of there, and then we'll backtrack, and, we'll figure out how to get the stuff in there
Had that
later
not
on."
happened, though, you know, people would have
Yeah,
probably just kept going with TV, and God knows what would have happened to movie theaters. I mean, it's pretty bad as it is now, just you know, with the
yeah.
prevalence of streaming and streaming
I still
processes.
enjoy going to the movies, and, when I go out to LA next week, I'm gonna hit a movie, just because I love that. I love the smell of the movie theater and stepping on the popcorn and sticking to the what, for me, nah, but that just it meant I remember Saturday matinees, and I would go there
Oh,
all day long for, like, $2 and
yeah, if
watch,
you were a kid, that's where you lived in Hollywood. I was at the Pix Theater every Saturday with all my buddies, and you know, we'd be watching some horror film, The Alligator People, or you know,
yeah,
who knows what in those days. You know, we were there also to pull
it's fun.
pranks. You know,
That
you get
was
up in the
fun.
balcony and knock a coke off on somebody below.
That
That
was
was
you
all right.
saying,
Yeah,
"Alright, I have to make a
fun
citizen's arrest
when
because,
you're like 12,
we didn't realize
13.
it was you." I didn't
It
realize
was
it was
me,
you yet. Alright, I
me and
have
about 100 other little kids.
right, but you're the only one that was Chip Douglas, the only one that they'll bring up for they'll go, "No, no,
Yeah,
aha,
that would
him,
have been a
it's him."
TMZ moment. Now, yeah, that would have been on TMZ. It's what that would
Yeah,
have been.
I know things have changed now, it's like, "Oh my god." Alright, I have a clip, another one. Now this is, and it's labeled, it's a short, it's a quick one, it just says, quite simply, it says, "Stanley Livingston, my 3 sons, talks about making it as an actor." And this was one that, to give credit out to, Pop Goes the Culture TV. This was, I'm
Oh
guessing
yeah.
this was at least a couple years ago. I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
I believe it. Yeah, yeah, it was probably at least 5, 6 years ago.
So let me do this, and we'll take a, let's see what we got here. So this is Stanley Livingston, for those that are listening in, talking about making it as an actor. Um, basically, this is
You know what I learned is a lot of actors that are very seasoned actors really don't know what they're doing. They've mainly gotten by on luck. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the people that have had just very, and not to say luck isn't a part of it, it's a very big part of it. But I'm of the mind, having heard this many stories, that you make your own luck too. And most of it has to do with your passion, your persistence, and more than anything else, your proactivity. And that comes from your heart, because if you're not coming from a place within inside you to be an actor, meaning that this is almost like a biological drive, you're never going to make it. It's just too hard. You know what I learned?
so that's
That
basically,
guy's pretty smart. Who's that guy you said
yeah,
that was?
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you
that's
kept
some
going.
sage advice. Yeah.
I hit
Well,
pause and you just kept going, man. I mean, you're powerful, man. Even when I stopped the tape, you're still going. That was pretty good.
yeah.
Well, I
I've
mean,
learned how
you
to
meant
do
what you
that.
was, yeah, you meant what you were saying on there. I mean, that's,
I did, yeah. Well, that's part of that program that I think I mentioned to the actor's journey, which, yeah, there's been a curse for all actors since the beginning of the motion picture industry. Actors go to school, they go to colleges, universities, they study the art and craft of acting. Many of them become very seasoned and knowledgeable actors and creative actors. But what's missing is the whole business side of being an actor. It's not taught. It's just, or if it is taught, it's taught in such a sketchy, minimalistic way that it really doesn't serve people going into that business. Every business is a two component business. There's the thing that you got into it for, that's your passion, whether it's painting, being up on stage, being in front of a camera, being in your kitchen and becoming a chef. But if you're trying to take it to a commercial level, there's also a business side. And unfortunately, this business side has, we're going into 100 years of this now with the motion picture industry, or over 100 years,
yeah, over
and there
100.
hasn't been a business program for actors to study what they need to know to bring what you've just learned into the business so that you can turn it into a career. And I kept bemoaning that, and every actor I've ever known, God, geez, this is taking forever to try and learn the business, or I just got wrong advice, or my agent, he didn't even know. It's ridiculous. So,
He didn't
uh,
know. Yeah, he didn't know. Well, this, I'm
well,
on
that's
this.
because he could have been as new as the actor. He might have started
Yeah,
his agency 2 years ago. So what's
yeah.
he gonna know? My
Well, good.
idea was to put a program together for actors, and I wanted to bring 100 people from the entertainment industry, not just actors, because that is one point of view of the business, but people from behind the camera as well, meaning directors, producers, executive producers, showrunners, talent agents, talent managers, casting directors. I brought in the president of the Screen Actors Guild at the time, the president of the Directors Guild at the time we shot.
Yeah,
And these are the people, all of them had a minimum of 20 to 30 years of experience in the industry, down in the trenches of the industry. So the advice and the information they're imparting to actors is, it's unassailable. This is it. Sort of the horse's mouth has spoken. And I put a program together called The Actor's Journey. It's a 10-hour long program that teaches actors literally everything you need to know about the business side of the business. That 10 hours is divided up into, well, we originally had it on DVD. So it was divided up into 10 DVDs that each had 8 segments on it. That's still what we have. There's 65 segments in all that comprise this program. And anyway, we're just converting it so it can become a streaming program from a DVD program, and it should be up momentarily. I've been working on the aspects of getting it up into for streaming media for the last
yeah.
couple
You got to
months. So
attach it to
we're
the
almost done.
thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I
The
was,
website's all built. We're ready to go. We're just waiting for the video to be connected now to the website. You click a button, and you can either buy the whole program all at once, or you can buy parts of it. They'll be the same as we had before. We've decided to divide it up into 8 chunks. And if that's still too much for you, it's divided up into the 65 bytes. So you can buy it a byte at a time and take the
Bite size
program.
or full size,
Right.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't have to be one of these actors that just spent 10 to $100,000 on your training and then go, okay, but what do I do next? Or I just got to Hollywood and I don't know who to call. And when I call, nobody wants to talk to me. And I just got out of Yale or Harvard. So why did I go there? Well, we explain all this stuff to you. So, and it's not
Well,
me
that's good.
explaining it. It's
That's
the
something
hun.
definitely different, and, for those that's what I was trying to say for those that are
Mm-hmm.
listening in and that are unable to watch, it's www.stanleylivingston.com, so basically Stan's name.com, and, that's where it's on. Now, I'm looking on here, so we're sharing our screen, but for like I said, for those that can't see it, I'm gonna describe it here. So you have photos about you, my 3 sons, obviously, that's one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, that's
Movies
my
and
personal website,
right.
StanleyLivingston.com.
Yeah, exactly, and it's, you got your movies and TV, your HEWWW, your contact information, the gallery, actor's journey, so you're hitting it f on all heads. It's not just, "Okay, now you're an actor." I mean, and you're just kinda spinning around near a bus stop somewhere in LA or in, Hollywood going, "Now what do I do? How do I audition? What's the stuff that I'm not reading between the line?" Like, all these things. You have been through this 10
Yeah,
times over and
yeah.
different age brackets. You didn't just go in there like Robert Duvall was an older actor, before he started actually acting on a regular basis, and then there's people that were really young, like Shirley Temple. Like you kind of went through. It's actually awesome that you can say, "Well, I did this at age 6, and then I did this at age 10, and then as a teenager, and as a young adult, and as an older."
Mhm.
I mean, you've hit it all, so you have a wealth of information that you are graciously sharing with the
I do,
general
but
public.
it's not just me sharing it. In fact, I'm really just the host and introduce, the topics.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be just me. Who wants to hear from Chip from My 2 Cents telling you how to become an actor? I mean, granted, I'm a little further down the road than most folks because I did luck out. I did succeed, and I've been doing it for almost 70 years. But the idea
Wow.
behind it was
70.
I needed to bring in some really stellar people to teach this program. And I mean, we ended up with people like Henry Winkler,
Right.
Sherman Hemsley, in fact, the guy that directed me in X-15, Richard Donner, who after
Done.
X-15 went on to become the Richard Donner who directed The Omen, Superman, all the Lethal Weapon movies. I mean, he became, an A-list director. He's in it. He's teaching. So there were, like I said, there's 100 people that I brought together. They all had 20 to 30 years of experience, and I think it's about 55 of them had either been nominated for or won Academy, Emmy, or Golden Globe awards. So if you're going to learn, you want to learn from somebody that's been there, done that, and succeeded, not acting teachers. It's great that they can do what they do and turn out great actors, but they
Yeah.
really have very minimal information because they didn't go on to become actors. And that's part of the problem. You have people teaching this that really can't teach that aspect of it. And there's been this big hole since the beginning of time that I hope we've filled with this project that actors now have a place to turn to get all the information they need if they're going to find themselves on a trajectory to become, in the mainstream of the industry.
Well,
That's what
there's the,
everybody
How the
wants.
West Was Won there. Now I'm looking at all your different this
Mhm.
is basically like a roadmap to like, of awesomeness here. So I'm just gonna read this real quick here. So it says, which we were talking about earlier, How the West Was Won is an American epic Western film directed by Henry Hathaway, John Ford, and George Marshall, produced by Bernard Smith, written by Webb, James Webb, narrated by Spencer Tracy, amazing. Originally filmed in true three lens cinerama, which you were just talking about, with the according three panel panorama projected onto an enormous curved screen. For those that don't know what that is, that's where it kind of just it takes up the entire place, and it's kind of awesome. I've been in one of those or something similar. So we got Carol Baker, Lee Jacob, Henry Fonda, Carolyn Jones, Carl Malden, Gregory Peck, George Papard, Robert Preston, Debbie Reynolds, James Stewart, Eli Wallach, John Wayne, and Richard
Mhm.
Wild. Richard, wow, I can't even know he
Widmark.
was in it too. Richard Widmark is in there.
Yeah.
It's a supporting cast. Bridget
Yeah.
Balzan, Walter Brennan, David Bryan, Ken Curtis, Andy Devine, Jack Lambert, Raymond Massey, and Abraham Lincoln. Oh, as Abraham Lincoln. I was going to say, wow, Abraham Lincoln was in that too. That's a hell of a show, man. Um,
Well, Raymond Massey played Abraham Lincoln in I don't know how many films.
you
In
got
fact,
Agnes Moorehead was, and then you got Harry Morgan as U.S. For people who don't know Harry Morgan, that was from MASH, and Ulysses S. Grant, Thelma Ritter, Mickey Shaughnessy, and on and on and on. I mean, look at this, Lee Van Cleef.
yep.
Did I say that right? Lee Van Cleef. And there he is, last but not least, Stanley Livingston. Stan plays George Peppard and Carolyn Jones' oldest son, Prescott Rawlings, in this Academy Award winning star studded Western. I would agree with that. I wasn't even really big into Westerns. Like, I would watch John Wayne and that
Yeah,
kind of thing. But this, I did see this, and this is a roadmap to the stars pretty much. And you were in it, Stan, with these people,
I know.
and
In
you
fact,
coexisted with them. How cool is that?
a funny thing happened when we were shooting it, because this was probably about the third year, maybe of My Three Sons, which was this enormous success on TV.
It was
And,
like
I had a
63,
lot of
right?
kids
64.
yeah, I think we shot it in 63, it came out in
Yep.
64. But
Yep.
when we would go to the locations, either in Lone Pine or we went to Prescott, Arizona, Kingman, Arizona, and we go to the shooting location, I'm sure Henry Hathaway wanted me because at least I had some credits, and I guess he figured, well, he'll know what he's doing. But I'm sure he wasn't in tune with my career at that point. What would happen is we would go, and then after 3 o'clock, there'd be kids that would come around and watch us shooting, and because they would see me, because I was on TV every week.
Right.
I'm sure they knew who John Wayne was, but back then, if you're in a movie, you may do one or two movies a year, and that would be your thing. I'm on TV, once a week. It was crazy. So what would happen within an hour? There'd be 5,000 kids outside near where we were shooting, all screaming, "Chip, Chip!" And the director was going, "What is going on? What is going on?" They had no idea that that was all for me.
Only for
I mean,
Chip.
it was actually embarrassing. But the assistant director had to go. They go, "Well, the guy you hired there, that little kid, he's on like a top TV series, so he's got all these fans that are gonna keep showing up everywhere we go and destroying all these shots because they won't shut up." They finally had to get some police and kind of keep just the regular citizens of Prescott and Kingman away from the shooting site so we could shoot. But yeah,
Right. Oh, and this
that
one
was
right
crazy.
here, yeah, I mean, you have because yeah, it's hard enough to have to do that, and you have to keep cut and keep stopping. There's people in the background and
Yeah,
people making noises, ambient noise. This Attack of the 60-Foot
yeah,
Centerfold,
centerfold.
that's a remake of the Attack of the
Yeah,
50-Foot
fit,
Woman, right? Okay.
right. Yeah, it was a
Who is that?
Roger Corman film.
Okay. Who's the young lady that's in this?
Just his name, I think, was J.J. North. But it was similar to the Attack of the 50-Foot Centerfold, or 50-Foot Woman, but updated to I think it was early '90s that
Hmm.
these girls could pop their tops in movies, and it didn't mean anything after that.
Well, yeah, what's her name?
What
We
is going
lost you for a
on?
second, so I
Hello,
didn't hear
can
you.
you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Hello, did I lose you? I
No,
think I lost you.
no, we got you.
Hello, I'm
We
gone.
got you, Stan. You're good. You're good, Stan.
Hmm.
You're good.
Emily.
Alright, so I guess he left and then he'll try to come back in. I don't know why he thinks that he was, gone, but yep. So, we'll try it again.
Uh,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
was.
giving you a bunch of thumbs up going, "You're good, keep going," and you were like, "Hello?" I'm like, "Look at the screen, Stan, you know." You were fine.
Can you
It's
see me
okay.
now? I just want to make sure you can see me and hear
Nothing
me.
happened on our end.
Okay, great, great.
0. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly it looked like I was frozen, so I couldn't
No,
go, uh-oh.
you were
All
good the
right.
whole time, and that's where editing will come in later, so we could
That
don't
always
worry about it.
helps.
It happens. Alright, so let me hit so I'll take this off of there, but that is for, like, once again, I have the people that are coming in on 88.6, so it's www.stanleylivingston.com. That is the basically, it's
A fan website,
a
basically.
okay. That's how
Yeah.
you would describe that?
And
Or
then, yeah, I mean, I also kind of made it an homage to My Three Sons. There's a lot of detailed information about My Three Sons there. There's a list of everybody who ever appeared on My Three Sons. There's a list of all the major movie stars who appeared on My Three Sons, or
right.
people who it was their first job and they went on to become movie stars, like Martin Sheen and Beau Bridges, Sally Kellerman. We had a lot of people that were on there, and it
Did you
might have
work
been their
with
first
Sally
job.
Field at all?
I never did. I
No, I
wish
thought
I
for
would
some
have.
reason you
Boy, I thought she was so cute,
Yeah,
but
you
no,
and
I
the
never
yeah,
did.
Chip and the Flying Nun, there you go, that would've been
Yeah,
awesome.
they should have got her instead of Polly, instead of Ronnie Troop for my wife. That would have been kind of
Oh
cute.
my god,
Yeah,
yeah,
she was at the onset of a big career though, so that
no,
her agent
definitely,
would have probably said no.
that's probably well, that's probably in my opinion, I mean, everyone has a different or varying opinion, I should say, about when was the golden age of, shows. And now you did TV. As far as I mean, and you were awesome at it. Like, I mean, there's no doubt there. Nobody can even refute that. What about movies? Because some people like one, like the other. Some do two, like do both. Some it doesn't really resonate with people. Like they're so used to seeing you, and it's hard to make that conversion if you're in one medium than the other. Were you able to do? You did short films, didn't you, at some point? Or
I have done short films, but yeah, I do a movie here and there. They weren't, necessarily the best movies or the best parts, but when
okay,
you're an actor and you've been on a TV series, you're fighting that your whole life, especially at the point of time where I got off of
to achieve where
My
you
Three
were,
Sons. Yeah,
yeah,
the casting directors. If you were a star in a TV show, it was very difficult to get out on an interview because they felt you were typecast and would ruin somebody's movie by being in it. It's a George Reeves effect. The guy was a big actor before he did Superman, and
yeah, he
that
was
basically totaled his career. He was in a few movies after that, and they would cut him out because people just, in the middle of the movie,
stuck as
he's
Superman. Yeah,
right. He'd be riding a horse, and people still yell out Superman. So
but that didn't happen to you. Yeah, Superman riding a
it
horse
didn't.
was
I kept
when
pushing. What happened to me was it was kind of a fork in the road when I was about 18, 19. I got interested in what was going on, the processes to make all this stuff, and started pestering the cameramen, the editors, the guy that did our scheduling. I wanted to know how you did it. So I spent a lot of my time the last 2 years of My Three Sons learning everything I could about cameras, lenses, uh, editing, and these were all seasoned pros. Some of our cameramen, or should I say DPs, actually had won Academy Awards earlier in their life. And so I'm learning from really good guys, kind of like what I'm suggesting actors do with the actor's journey if you're interested in something. So by the time I was 20, I was going to college. I took a cinema class and I met a guy in there. We formed a production company and we started shooting whatever we could shoot, commercials, industrials, corporate, music videos. And for me, it led a path that I've probably worked in every medium from Super 8 to 16, Super 16, 35 millimeter, every vanilla flavored of video, edited and,
flavor. Yeah.
CMX, non-linear, linear, all the way up to the digital age. And yeah, I've done everything from, like I said, commercials on up to feature films. So,
Well, okay, so now we have all right, so that was StanleyLivingston.com.
mhm.
Now I have up once again, so I'm going to have to narrate since people will be listening in and can't see. But for those that can see it, there's your other website. So this is www.firstteamproductions.com. Do you
Mhm.
want to explain to the viewers at home and
Yeah.
our listeners
Well,
what we're looking at?
yeah, yeah. Well, I've had a production company since about 1970, 71. This is like the latest iteration of it, probably 40, 50 years later. So some of the stuff that I've done is up there. Some of the things that we're developing as potential feature films or TV pilots
Right.
is listed here. So yeah, if you go on to
Current
current
projects.
projects, you can see
Okay.
some of the stuff that we're talking to people about getting funding for. And then there's a list of projects that we completed. Obviously, not everything, but some of the stuff that I did.
Right.
And yeah, so
So
yeah,
we got Race with the Dragon feature
hmm
film,
yeah.
and I'll go through these a little bit for time. So you got The Quarryman,
Hmm.
Locations: Liverpool, England, and Los Angeles, California. And then Barstow. Look at that one. Now that one looks more like my kind of thing. That looks
Yeah,
more.
it's a
It looks
film
menacing. I
noir.
like menacing.
It definitely is. Yeah, I was putting
Yeah.
that together with a friend of mine, Steve Railsman.
Yeah, that's this is all stuff that you have in the works that you're gonna probably try to land financing for. Then you got to be
Yeah.
writer and director and the whole nine. The Titan horror.
Yep.
Hmm, interesting.
Sci-fi.
And this looks like 50s style to me, like just the way that
Yeah.
you have the artwork. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah. 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 No, it's like it's a kind of a 50s style, maybe mash up with Alien type of thing. And then
Mash
this
up.
one is
There you go.
called Johnny No Face, which is based on a real character that I had heard of and wrote a movie about.
So
Uh,
you still do a lot of writing, correct? I mean, or is it
I
more
haven't in a while, but yeah, this is stuff that I'd written a while ago, but still trying to get made. Yeah, it's a great story, and I think would make a good horror film in the vein of kind of like Halloween type
Hey,
of
look, I
thing.
love stuff like that, Stan. I'll throw a little bit of cash your way on that one. Let me at least do my part if I can. No, because I love stuff like that. There's so many good movies,
Yeah,
and
I do too. I grew up on
yeah,
sci-fi, horror,
I like
classic horror,
The Hammer horror
hammer
films. I was
horror.
a big
Love it.
fan of like Peter Cushing and all that kind of. Oh man, yes,
Yep, yep,
definitely. That was Vincent
uh,
Price. I loved him. You know.
yep.
So
Uh,
you got the Tower in here. What else we got? A Friendly Game.
Yeah, that's kind of
Doesn't look very
a
friendly,
police
Stan.
who done it. It turns not so friendly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if that's friendly, I hate to see the
It-
unfriendly one.
it's anything but. Stunts is a TV pilot that I'm working with a partner on right now. It's
Okay.
about a over the hill stunt guy who doesn't want to quit and turn his business over to the younger guys. So he's still doing it. It's a
So
comedy.
it's a sitcom.
Yeah,
Okay, I see it on
sitcom. Yeah, yeah.
and so did you write all these or did you have a
Stunts I didn't. And the next one down, it's called Pot Melting.
pot melting? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of the three writers on it, and it's kind of a matchup. It's about a Jewish guy who's about to get married to a Chinese girl and their respective families, and what could go wrong?
I was just gonna say that, and I swear to God, I was gonna say and I'm only a voice actor. I'm not an actor like you, but we were right on the same thing. I was just about to say, "Gee, what possibly could go wrong?"
That's where all the humor
Yeah.
comes in. Yeah, so
I'll tell
yeah,
you
I've
what,
got
I'd love to
all different types of
yeah, you've got a
projects.
variety here.
Yeah, if you're a producer, which that's
Mm.
what I am, I get calls. Say, hey, do you have a horror film? Do you have a monster movie? Do you have a sci-fi movie?
Just
Do you have an
directed
action
right to the
thriller?
site. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they can at least get a taste of what I've gotten. I have more,
Wow,
but those are the
nice.
ones I'm focusing on. But
So
that's
let's
how
go
you get the
in
job done.
yeah, I mean, so here's projects completed. In the picture, this is 35
Okay.
millimeter. This is Cinerama. Is this what you were talking about before?
Well, this was made 50 years later.
Okay,
That's the first Cinerama film, and a guy
the
named
first.
yeah, William Strohmeyer and I put this together, and it played at the ArcLight for the Cinerama Film Festival. They did this was back in 2012, but this was the first, and now is the last Cinerama film ever made.
Wow. So this is definitely it
And it
stands
was
on
a
its own.
pain
Yeah.
in the ass. Yeah, we're moving a camera around that's got those three cameras in it that weighed about 300-400 pounds. We
Oh,
didn't even have the blimp for it. The blimp would have made it look like an old time 50s phone booth.
there
That's
you go.
how
Oh,
big
here's
it
funny.
is.
I remember seeing parts of this came out like mid 80s, this checkers thing. I remember it was it was weird, but it was funny weird. And I'm like, it's Chip, but I didn't recognize you at first, because you're
Oh,
kind of
I'm not in it. I was just the producer on this one.
no, no, no. On the then I'm thinking of something else because you were
Yeah,
definitely in one of them. Uh
it
yeah,
was
you were
probably
producer.
something
What's
else.
the one? It's the one I'm thinking of then because I saw you. I'm like, that didn't even look like you. Like now I feel weird because I can't remember.
Yeah, I
Oh
don't even
man.
remember all the stuff I did. Well, anyway, that's the actor's journey when it was a DVD product. And
Melissa Gilbert, Richard Donner.
there's a list of all these people that were
Yeah.
in it. It's like another who's who kind of thing.
Look at this. Yeah. And Jack Shea is there. Let's see. Chick Manera, Scott Wilson, D. Wallace, sure, from Cujo and so many other things. Sure, I know who
Yeah,
that is.
yeah,
Danny
yeah, yeah,
Trejo. There you go.
yeah, yeah.
Michael York, Henry Winkler, so we got Anson Williams, and I mean, I can't read them all, but I mean, it just goes on and on and on. These are like red carpet type of people, and it's good. And it's another Richard Donner.
Yep.
So you
Yeah.
obviously work well with him. All right. So what else we got? Corey the Clown Show.
This
Oh, I'm
was
sorry,
a
the the
kid.
Clown Show.
Yeah, this was a TV series for PBS that I directed,
The
and
Active
then
Journey for Kids. Oh,
for
look at this.
kids.
This
Yeah,
is
that
perfect. So yeah,
yeah, the kids one we did is kind of a companion piece to the first one, but it's really not for the kids. It's for the parents who want to involve their kids or teenagers in the industry, and it's the business side of the business. If you're a mom or a dad who are trying to bring your children to the industry, so you don't get them. Uh, well, the stuff that happens to kids is pretty horrendous too. So we're trying
yeah,
to
I know.
keep parents from falling into that trap.
Yeah, that's definitely a slippery slope right there. And oh, here you go. So there's Sherman Hemsley. I'm sorry. Every time I see him, once again, another typecasting. It's come on, it's Mr. Jefferson. I mean, this is what I see. I'm a '70s kid, So
Yeah,
yeah, of course
yeah,
you're gonna see it. But
he was a great guy, very
yeah,
friendly
yeah, he's
guy.
been gone for a bit now too. Okay, so you got Hey Ma on there,
Yeah,
Dorian. What's this
Dorian
one?
was a musical that I wrote. I didn't do the music; I did the book for, and ran in Hollywood for a while. But yeah, I just wanted to show that I had some stage stuff that I had been a part of. The
Show a
other
little
one too.
variance in there. You're
Yeah,
not one
yeah.
dimensional. Well, that's very impressive, Stan, actually, because it's like you feel that first of all, it seems very user friendly and interactive, which is cool. So let's go into one of the other ones is contact, which will give out your contact stuff up, but just so that people know. So here's
Yeah,
Stan's
I think
thing.
there's a bio thing there.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
on.
so
Mhm.
if you go down, you'll see some of my credits. This is the
Some
problem. It's like what
some of your credits.
yeah, well, just scroll down, you'll see it.
Some.
It keeps going for a while.
Yes, it does. We'll both be hey, look, that's come on, that's impressive, and it goes back all the way. Okay, so we can put this is just some of them, and I
Yeah.
can't even read all this stuff. Then again, the Ballad of Fred McMurray picture, Chicago Suns, and this is like varying dates. Here's 1995 and 1997, 89. As we go back down, as we scale down, Mischief Live Theater. See how they run live theater from '84. Strip teaser. Okay, hold on. What's that one?
That one
What's
I just did a cameo in.
all
Yeah,
right?
for a buddy of mine who was a director, they needed something. I showed up. I don't even remember what I did in it.
Yeah,
So it's been a
that's a good
while.
yeah, good ad lib there, Stan. Yeah, I don't remember that one.
But
That was fun. How about the
all I remember is
Scooby-Doo
I did voices for I guess a couple years
animated?
at
Yeah.
Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, I did a TV series for them called The Roman Holidays, and
Mhm.
then they kept having me come back to do additional voices. Scooby-Doo's was one of the show. The others
Yeah.
was Devlin's,
Devlin's,
the
I see that on there,
motorcycle. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, just
Very impressive, sir. A funny thing happened, very true. I'm just looking under, the Roman hol the TV series, yeah, the animated one, the Roman Holidays, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
think there's about
okay.
12, 15 shows we did. That
This is all 1972, it looks like on this for all
hmm
13 episodes. That's for Hanna-Barbera, okay. Uh Private Parts. Another one that
that
I'm sure you forgot. Okay. What's
No,
going
that
on?
actually is a pretty well-known film. It's a cult film
Yeah.
that we made for MGM. It was
Oh, okay.
actually Roger Corman's brother, Gene Corman, made it, and it's actually a great film. What really kind of was a disaster for the producers was the title. Back in 1974, when they released it, it
Sure,
sounded like a
Private Part.
porno film. Yeah, ended up on all the grayed out pages all over the United States, and MGM
Wow.
had to pull the film, but it sort of redeemed itself. Apparently, Ted Turner really liked it, brought it back out, put it into circulation
Oh,
on
no shit.
on
Okay.
his TNT, and it actually plays in LA at there's a theater called the New Art that is where they run classic films and cult films, and it's one of the midnight movies there. They
That's
do it every
cool.
so often, so it's
This like
kind of
these are cult
redeemed.
classics and stuff like
And
that, and I
it's actually a great. It's not what it sounds like. It's actually like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And the guy that was the cinematographer on this, well, the director was Paul Bartel, who did Death Race 2000, Eating Raoul. But the
Eating Raoul, yeah.
cinematographer who made this film look really just
Yeah.
amazing was a guy named Andrew Davis, who went on to become a director and directed Steven Seagal in about two or three movies, Sylvester Stallone, all the action, big action thriller movies. So he kind of went on to a stellar career from this film.
Yeah, that's not I
And it,
mean, you have all this stuff is on here. It's, like I said, it's very impressive, and it goes on and on. Obviously, on the top is My Three Sons, but people could go to this website, like we said, which is
Mhm.
www.firstteamproductions.com. Your
Right.
personal website, basically a roadmap, a how to for this, how to become a star, basically is www.stanleylivingston.com.
Yeah, from the Stanley Livingston site, there'll be a link to what's called theactorsjourney.com, which is what
Actors
we were
Journey.
talking about. Yeah, that's the name of that project that we did for actors.
All right. I'm going to take a look at that. So we'll take that off the screen for right now. But, it's the fact that, like I said, I don't know if I would say, well, it's not easy to stay relevant for all these decades. So you mentioned before, and I kind of just did like an about face, like, what was that? Like a 180, 70 years
Just
of this
about, yeah.
industry.
Yeah, yeah. This year
How
it'll
many
be
people could
70
actually
years.
say that? I mean, on
I
70.
don't say it. I don't say it anymore. Somebody calls it, especially on my producing side.
Oh,
I don't want to put that. It's sort of like, how long have you been doing this? Well, you want to say you've been doing it a while. So I go, do I put 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50? If I say I've been
what's a
doing
good
this
number,
since
Stan? What?
7 years, they're imagining that this 90, 100-year-old producer is going to come out.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
we're gonna have to help
li-
you up to your feet,
yeah,
and
yeah.
thank God that's not the case.
I
But
know, even on the acting side, people go, "Well, how long have we been doing it?" I go, "Yeah, I've done it about, I'll say 30 plus years."
I've done
The
too much stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, you should have cut it off at like 55, and then we could have did the thing, and you get the gold watch and it. But no, your
yeah,
Stan just kept trooping
yeah.
forward. But the
When
fact
I was
that
younger, I wanted to add more years onto it. Now it's like I forget it. I don't want to even say that I've been doing it 70 years. Like I said, people
well,
will
obviously
expect
you
me
love
to
it.
come out in a wheelchair or something. So yeah, no, I love it.
Oh
So
yeah, you could be like Perry
pretty
Mason
vital.
part two. There you
Yeah,
go.
right.
But
Roll me out, bud. I'm ready
this
to
is
go.
this is definitely obviously you love your craft because obviously money isn't a
Mhm.
consideration when you've been, and I'm not talking about raising money or capital for a film. I'm talking about like just in general, like everyday life for you and your family and
Yeah.
everything that's going on. That goes beyond that. When you've been doing something in a certain industry without any kind of breaks or noticeable break, I should say, being in the public eye and doing what you do from ranging from the late 50s all the way up, and we're in 2024. That's a labor of love. That is you being in your element. That is someone that is comfortable in his skin and trying different things and film and voice acting for Hanna-Barbera and just being that you were young and able to handle the fact that you were around major stars at the time. This isn't, I mean, come on, Jimmy Stewart. And you were
Yeah.
able to handle all that at a young age. That's definitely I mean, I tip my hat to your parents because I'm sure that they had a great hand in that. Is that the case? That's what I feel that it should be.
Yeah, I think they were probably more intimidated by some of the people that I worked with because they were more aware of their careers. When you're a
Oh,
9-year-old kid, a 13, 14-year-old kid, you're just dealing with another actor who's just older than you, an adult. So that's a good thing about being a kid actor. You're not intimidated by that.
you
When you
didn't
work
know enough
with
about
Paul
him to
Newman, I didn't know enough. He was just, the guy playing my dad, and he seemed like a sweet guy and was trying to relate to me and my little brother in the scene. And
yeah,
same thing with his wife, who played his wife in the movie. They're really nice people, and off camera, they, were trying to relate to us very quickly because we were going to play their kids. So it looked like there was an honest relationship going on there to the degree it could be with, just meeting somebody an hour or two before that. So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The only person I ever worked with that was a little bit weird was the director of How the West Is Won. Henry Hathaway was what we call a screamer. He screamed at everybody, and that was a
Screamer.
little bit intimidating to work on a set where
Well, you're a
somebody's
little kid.
yelling. I know.
You're
Well, didn't matter.
didn't care, right?
Didn't matter, man. Yeah, he was yelling at the adults, Debbie Reynolds, Jimmy Stewart,
Jeez. Was
me.
he like a perfectionist or what was his problem? He just
No,
wanted,
it's just his method of operating on the set. Other people were like, you got a guy like James Cameron. This is the same way. I've heard his sets are
yeah.
very tense, and he yells at the crew guys.
So
And
was Stanley Kubrick, from what I heard back in the day, like
yeah,
very difficult to do, like Clockwork Orange or The Shining or any one of those. I mean,
mhm.
just really, what a like exasperating. These actors are
It
like,
is if you're the actor, because most of the time you're being coddled. So to get a guy who doesn't care of,
it's like a
being a
drill sergeant.
pile of
You're
beans who you are. It's like, yeah, get your ass over here and get that effing scene done. And yeah, that's how he was, man. He'd shoot people with blanks. It's
it's
like
a hey,
you
let me
wouldn't
tell
get away
you,
with that today.
you don't have to be Chip Douglas on here, man. This is Jersey. It's okay if you have to drop the F bomb. We give you the floor. It's okay. I could see you were right on the precipice. We almost had you
Precedent.
there. No, but you know
Yeah.
what? You had to work with all these different. I mean, obviously there's ego in this business. I mean, that goes without saying. We do on radio. We have ego. I can imagine being on constant film in Hollywood. The type of, you're walking into this person is very pretentious, or this one is alluding to. I mean, there's so many different pitfalls. That right there, is that a major reason why you have what you have on your site to try to help people? Was that at least part of it?
We talk about that. I mean, because
You
you're
do.
going to work with all sorts of people that think they're God's gift to acting, and
Yeah.
they're difficult people to work with, and they're probably difficult people in real life, high maintenance. But
Yeah.
most people aren't. They're just there. They know what they've got to do. They come in. They prepared, and they're ready to do when the camera rolls, and the directors know how to work with them. Once in a while you get an oddball guy who's just made it his style because he's been around for so long and did a lot of cowboy movies where most of those guys were pretty rough and tumble anyway. So the fact that he would have a fist fight with him on the set wasn't, unusual. That kind of doesn't happen anymore. For most people, they're just there to get the job done and go home. I think
Yeah, I mean, it's just a
all
job,
the
but,
stuff
like,
from the
yeah.
50s, the glamour, the glitz, the premieres, the parties. I think, the general public now knows that most of that stuff's a bunch of horse shit.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not what you see or don't see, obviously,
Yeah,
you're not gonna
that's made
divulge
up
any
by the
secrets.
publicists. It's all just, BS that's made up to make the movie industry seem something special. And, they still do it to a certain extent today. But for the
That's what I
people
was
that get
just about
involved
to
in
ask
it,
you.
yeah,
I
they
just
didn't grow up on all that.
Right, well, and that leads me to what I wanted to say as we wind down, but what do you think about, obviously, you're over qualified, if nothing else, to be able to answer this for us, so my question is, how do you feel? Obviously, you watch the news, you're in California, you're in LA, you're right
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
for the most part. What do you think about what's going on in the industry right now? And for what I'm trying to talk about is I can't run the reel because it's for NBC, but the comments that Jerry Seinfeld had made about, like Hollywood is dead, the different people. I don't think it was Ricky Gervais. I forgot exactly who it was. I was watching some copy on it when I was reading for something else. I'm going to read it on the plane tomorrow when I'm there, so I can be more. What do you think about in 2024? Because you're still getting funding and doing
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's going on? I know that it's changed. We all know that. You don't have
Yeah,
to.
I think the
But
distribution patterns for film and TV have
right.
changed because of the advent of the internet. Really, when you look at Nick at
Okay.
Night, you've got various platforms out there,
Streaming everywhere, everyone's got
streaming stuff,
streaming now.
and
Mhm.
that's where your material has to go and be approved of and picked up. Hopefully, it used to be different. 30, 40, 50 years ago, how it worked was there was about whatever, 8, 10 studios, and you would raise money to do your film. I know quite a few guys that did this. They used to make those motorcycle movies, like Hell's Angels on Wheels and films
Mhm.
like that, because they could get the money for it. They wanted stuff that would appeal to teenagers and movies they could play in drive-in movie theaters. So that's
Right.
kind of how you get your start. So you would raise $300,000, or I'm sorry, you'd raise 50, 60 to $100,000, and you'd go make your movie because that's what it costs. And to shoot it in 35 millimeter film. And then you would turn around and sell the movie for 250 to $300,000, and you were out of it. And then you made a profit for the guys that put up the money
Mhm.
immediately, and they weren't involved in whatever came in through distribution at that point. And you'd go make another movie and another movie. So it's kind of like a factory. And if you had talent and could break through and get a movie done, you would generally, get movies made. A guy that I knew, Richard Rush,
Yeah.
that's how he started doing Hell's Angel kind of movies and graduated to doing bigger and bigger movies. He did like Freebie and the Bean with Elliot Gould. He did a movie called The Stuntman with Peter O'Toole and Steve Railsback, which I think is one of the greatest films of all time. I
Which
really
one is that?
underrated.
Say that one again, Ken?
It's called the Stuntman,
The Stuntman?
and it has Steve Railsback in it as the stuntman. and
Okay.
it has Peter O'Toole as the director of a film within the film. But
Oh,
it's,
okay.
a psychological thriller that's on so many different levels. That's what makes it so sophisticated. When you
Yeah.
call it The Stuntman, it sounds like it's just gonna be an action movie, people throwing punches and doing stunts. It's not that at all. It's
Something
brilliant,
different.
brilliant. Right, well, there was a movie being made concurrent with that called The Stuntman, with Burt Reynolds, and unfortunately, the
Uh,
stuntman that Richard Rutch made got to the theaters first. So Burt Reynolds, they had to change that movie. It ended up being called Hooper, and
oh,
Hooper,
yeah, about the stu right, I liked Hooper. That was a good
yeah,
movie.
Hooper. That's it. It's a standard
I like Burt
action Burt
Reynolds.
Reynolds movie.
Yeah,
Where this other one had the same thing. There's a lot of interesting stunts in it, and kind of thrilling moments, and kind of a who done it and why, and you don't know why the person's doing what they're doing. And this guy who's a convict who wanders into the set and becomes a stuntman on it. He thinks the director is going to try and, in the end, kill him and get it on camera. That's his paranoia. So there's all these levels
kill him
going
and get
on.
it on camera. There you go, that's thinking.
It, yeah, well, the ultimate
Yeah,
stunt, so to speak. But yeah, what a great film. But he started out. That's how you started out back then. Now it's like, wow, there's so many channels and so much everybody doing it. Anybody with an iPhone, I suppose, can make a movie. That doesn't mean it's
yeah.
going to be good. What's the script and what's the story?
Yeah, there's a couple
Uh,
of things missing on that, and you know what? That not only that, but it's not even the advent or the way that streaming has. I mean, imagine 5, 10 years from now, we're going to be talking like about this
mm,
is inferior technology. I mean, back then, if something went directly or almost
mm.
immediately from the theater right to VHS, we should say, but like right to video, let's say, that was a bad thing. Now, people are making
Well,
stuff
not
specifically for like
necessarily.
Netflix or whatever.
Well, I mean, to be honest, DVDs, when they were around, becoming a legacy, if it's not already a legacy medium, basically saved the producers' asses because,
Really.
if you had a pretty good movie and made your money, meaning your fees and all that for making it, you were lucky to not get a little bit off the distribution, and you'd probably get cheated out of that by the studios for whatever reasons. But you usually reserve the right to sell the DVDs, which ultimately could mean you'd make more money off those DVD sales than you would of the movie.
Of the
So
actual
they
movie
were a
itself.
big,
Yeah,
big part of financing films, was to know that you had this whole upside on the back end, which isn't there anymore. It's like, what do you do now? That's what allowed a lot of movies to be made, and I think the loss of that is detrimental. But, what you have are all these networks, and they don't tell you what they're gonna buy it for or how much it did. You either sell it, negotiate a price, and then
right.
hope
Ahead of
you
time,
got all you could
before
get
you
out
even
of
know
it,
what's gonna
right.
happen, right? I mean,
Right,
you have no
and have
idea,
to
and
be
you're
happy with that. It's not, 20 years ago, that was the other thing where they were paying movie stars, $20 million to be in a film. They didn't wanna pay those guys like Sylvester Stallone or Tom Hanks or any of these big movie stars 20. The reason they paid those guys that money, the studios did, was to prevent them from doing low budget movies, turning around and in between a big film, doing
ah,
a film for Miramax that was maybe a $5 million movie that went on to become a contender for an Academy Award. But meanwhile, some movie where he's fallen off of, a building 20 times, it did okay financially speaking. But this other little movie would make almost as much and become an Academy Award because the actor got to do what he was unable to do in the big movies, which is act.
yeah,
The smaller movies were generally character studies. They did well. They always seem to be a favorite when it comes Academy Award time. But here you got a guy did that film maybe for $50,000 or maybe no money. Look at a movie like Dallas Buyers Club. Matthew McConaughey. The
yeah,
guy's
that was
making
good.
15, $20 million a movie. But then in between, he'd go off and do Dallas Buyers Club, and he didn't even take a salary because what happened? They lost some of their financing. He goes, I love the movie. I'll do it anyway. Well, what happened? The movie becomes nominated for Academy
Yeah,
Award,
what
and
does it do? He lost
he
all sorts of weight.
wins. He wins the Academy
I know he
Award as
did.
best. Right. And then
Yeah.
immediately the studio's like, well, wait a minute. He didn't
So, like,
even
now what do
charge
we
them.
do? He didn't
Right.
make
Now
any
what?
money. He didn't
And
do
now
anything. He wins it in between.
right, and did the movie for free. And now, when it
Wow.
comes to studio time, it's like, well, I want my $20 million from you guys. So it really
Uh-huh.
caused a lot of problems. So that's why they're going through a period of time where some of these big actors seem to go away, because the studio is saying, hey, if we can make a movie and pay some guy a couple $100,000, find a brand new talent, which
Yeah.
is one of the things we teach in the actor's journey. This is your advantage. Your advantage of going into the movie industry as a nobody is the movie industry is always looking for fresh faces. And if you've got
I'm
a,
sure they
a
are.
face that's different, handsome, ugly, I mean, not in a disparaging way, but you look at somebody like Danny Trejo, real life, if you were walking down an alley and that guy was coming at you, you'd probably kill yourself so he didn't get you. He's
I
scary
haven't
looking.
met him yet. I plan on it because
Yeah,
we have
well,
I have a mutual friend, but yeah, I would probably dart the other way with Danny Trejo coming at me, even at his age
exactly.
now. Still,
But
forget that.
the
Yeah,
irony is he's the nicest, most
that's
gracious,
what I heard.
pleasant,
Yeah.
polite guy, that started off on the wrong side of the law, but somehow got into the movie industry, which is a whole
He has a great
fascinating
story.
story.
I've
Oh,
read
he
his
does.
stuff,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he still does a lot of charity type of stuff, but I would say just real quick as we have to, as we wrap it up here though, Stan, and I appreciate your time because
Yeah.
there's so ma it's so hard. With someone like you, it's difficult. You didn't just do a couple of things and a couple of B movies in the '70s or made a television appearance on like,
Hmm.
Happy Days or something like that. I mean, your stuff has scaled and up and down and just keeps going. And now, instead of just saying, "You know what? I'm gonna retire and I've been doing this for," okay, we'll say it again, 70 years, and just you've obviously more than earned your place in not only film history, in TV history, but just basically you're a household name still, and that's got to
Yeah.
feel good. But what
Yeah.
I wanted to say was you are trying to help people. You're just getting your films, trying to get your funding for your films and everything, and we'll talk about that offline because I have some really good ideas for you there. When radio and TV meet, see that? See,
Mhm.
it's a marriage made in heaven. There, I can help and you can help. But I wanted to say that it's impressive that your website, you're not gonna make millions and millions, but that's just a lot like just saying, "This is my way of helping," maybe because maybe
Mhm.
I didn't have this and now I wanna help. That says a lot about who you are, who Stanley Livingston is, not Chip Douglas, Stanley Livingston.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes about you. Do you feel that way about that? Because I
Yeah, no, I'm proud about it. I mean, I wanted to do something about it, and it was in my
yeah,
power to do it. When I did, because
yeah,
I'd I've been an actor for so long. I've been a director, a producer, casting person. I mean, I've been the sound guy. I've been the cameraman, the
you
DP. So
every
I know
angle
all
you've
these
had.
every angle. So,
Yeah,
but when it comes to actors, I just saw this flaw in the system where they're just really not a system for bringing actors reliably and quickly to get the information that they need to do this. Usually what happens is you graduate and you beat around the bush for about 5 years and try to pick up as much as you can. And because your experiences are few and far between, it takes forever to learn about the
yeah,
inside part of the industry. And I thought, what if these actors just had this at the outset? All the stuff we know from people who've been doing this 20, 30 years,
right.
and they did something a little bit different than the standard actor, and that's what we tried to, dwell on in that interview process that I had with those people that are the teachers in the actor's journey, because they did something different and it caused them to succeed. And I wanted to bring that information to people so hopefully they can use it or use it as a basis to do something else, but realize you've got to distinguish yourself getting in. Either you have distinguishing looks or you have a unique personality or
Yeah,
you brought something into the room with you and the producer saw it. And instead of just doing your lines, you had a 20-minute, 30-minute conversation with the guy and he got to know you and you got it, you got the part. There's so many little components to this, but
yeah,
if I could write my own epitaph, I mean, I love that I did My Three Sons, and I'm glad I did it, and I can't believe it's still playing. But I'd rather be known for the actor's journey that I helped all actors, not just fans of TV shows, but my ilk, my brothers in arms who are trying to
yeah,
do
and you
this.
did.
That,
You've done all
that
these
made
things.
it a lot easier, for you to understand. I mean, this is a hard business, even when you know what you're doing. So you can imagine what it must be like if you don't know anything. And I think we've kind of taken care of that element that you can know what you're doing from day one.
Yeah, and then some. I mean, like I said, and that's a great response because I wasn't sure how you were going to answer that because, like I said, it speaks volumes about who you are. And I guess that it's safe to say that you grew up in the business at a time where it might have been okay now. It's hard to, I'm speculating, but at that time, you were in the right place at the right time. Like that little short that I played before, you said that, yes, you didn't try to BS anyone. You're like, yeah, there's a little bit of luck involved. Like you didn't try to candy coat it, for that little clip that we played earlier. That's true. You actually believe that that is played as a part in
It plays
who
a
or
part.
how you became, right? I mean, that's
Right, and part of it is, like I said, teaching people how to make your own luck. You can make your luck by doing certain things, and you can also make it
why
bad
not?
luck by not doing other things. And just you're in the industry. You spent your 20, 30,000 dollars on acting school, and you went on a couple interviews, didn't know what you're
Jesus, is it
doing, or
that much?
made some
I
mistakes. Oh,
wow.
are you kidding? It's 100,000 if you go to Yale or Harvard. But yeah, you're going to spend if you go to a 4-year university, you're going to spend probably 40, 50, possibly $60,000 in that 4 years getting your education. And so to come out of it and still not know what to do is just, I mean, it's reprehensible. But I understand it. The colleges can't be responsible for teaching you this. The people
Right.
that are teaching you probably had a dream of being an actor. They probably came into LA or New
Okay.
York earlier in their career.
All right.
It didn't work out for whatever
So you're
reason,
getting
and
the
they
tail end of that too now.
right, right. So they fell back on being a teacher with, they
Yeah.
probably studied that and had a degree, and that's where they ended up. But they can't help you get into the industry or teach you about it. You either got to do it on your own, and it takes forever. You'll never make it. You do it
Because
on
that's
your
all
own.
theory, right? You
Uh,
actually were in the trenches. You're talking about as someone who's standing there in front of a
yeah,
blackboard saying, "This is what it should be or could be." You're saying, "This is the way it actually was and is." Big
right, right,
difference right there. I'd rather pay
right.
you and get that advice than someone that's talking about it in theory, you know?
Exactly. That's why we wanted these
Yeah,
people. Like I said, they've been lauded by the industry. Like I said, 55 of them either won or been nominated for Academy, I mean, Gold Globe Award. So they're, they've proved themselves. They're recognized by the industry, and they've got 20, 30, in some cases 40 years of experience down really hard-earned experience from coming from the trenches of being down there and struggling to do this and making every mistake, but now being able to pass it on to another generation of actors. That's kind of what the
that's
whole
nice.
idea,
I
and the
got you.
idea to have it on DVD or now streaming media. I can't teach it. What am I going to do? To go to everybody's college and teach? Who's got time? And I want to do my own project. But this makes it portable. If you live in Pea Ridge, Arkansas, you can still go online and learn this material, and then either go to New York or LA, whatever your dream is, or the best way is to start locally.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted it to be portable. It's got to be everywhere. It can't just be in New York or LA where this information is available, or doesn't serve the purpose for why we made it.
I do have a quick question. That's actually a very good answer. I have, and this is just me personally. I'd like to know this, but with obviously things have changed. The whole world changed since COVID and everything. It's been 4 years now, believe it or not. And I know that our industry, as far as the voiceover part, where we were doing everything, not everybody had a home studio and everything like myself, but a lot of people were able to do everything remotely and then do your own editing and do like all things that they took on all these different things.
Hmm.
Some have a hassle, some not, and that's kind of how that's scaled. Let me ask you something: if somebody is going to now, if I'm in New York and you're in LA, okay, great. Obviously, we're known for theater. That'd be more prevalent here. That
Hmm.
Hollywood would be more film.
Right.
There's both things in both states. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but predominantly that's what it is. Would you suggest, like, can you still audition for? You have to show up still. You still have to sit in the green room or sit in the room and show. You can't just send stuff in and audition remotely. Is that correct? Because somebody I got varying information on that.
Yeah, I mean it's really changed. I mean, the old
It
ways,
has.
your agent would try to get an audition for you. You would go in the room if you were
Right.
lucky enough that the producer said, "This guy looks interesting. Let me bring him in." And if he liked your personality, and then
Right. Everybody's
you
sitting in the
get
one room.
passed
Yeah.
to the director and producer after that, and you're a contender. It's the same now, but what happens? I mean, thanks to technology, you could be in New York and at
Right.
least do an initial audition where you come in, maybe even read something, but if nothing else, they get to know you. Which in the old days, they'd have to fly you out. These
Yeah.
guys
Just
are
for an
not going to spend
audition.
any kind of
Hmm.
yeah. They're not going to spend that kind of money. So the technology has allowed casting directors, it's opened the door for them to see a lot more people. But then
Yeah.
that being said, you have now have more competition. That means you're going to have
Exa
more competition. It's exponentially more
good and
is the
yeah.
problem. That's
Okay,
the
we could
yin
do
and the
more,
yang of it. Right.
but now there's 1,000 more people I have to compete
Right.
with fierce
I
and
mean,
cutthroat,
in
right?
my era, that was, we didn't like that either. You go out on the audition, and there would be 50 guys there. You got a call back, and there would be like maybe you know
Half
five.
that.
Right,
Oh,
and then
man, okay, less
they'd
than
have
that.
a third call back, and on the third call back, there would be 20 people there. You're like, "What the fuck?"
How they just freaking oh, like I said, it's alright, man, we can do that. Yeah, you're like, "Wait a minute, it's already tapered down to this, and then how the
Mhm.
you're gonna be tell me that this and now all of a sudden we got 15 more people." Be like, "You know what?
Yeah, you're
How
going,
in
"What
the
am
world?"
I, chopped liver? Why'd you bring me back?"
And you're like,
So,
"Jeez." Well, and the long lines. Remember the long line? That was in New York when we used to audition. This is before I did, the voice stuff, and just it was just, like, different things for radio and everything, and then I remember people standing there, like, trying to like, it was open call, so, of course, you're gonna get, like, a billion people all standing in a line. They circled this I don't know what it was, like, apartment complex, and right before you would go into the
yeah,
sunroom or whatever they call there's gotta be, like, at least, like, 5,000 well, maybe not that many, but there was more than, 2 or 3,000
yeah,
people
that's the
all
way it was out
standing
here
there
too.
in the summer with a script and trying to, like, do lines with people, like
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little story. It's like when I finished My Three Sons,
yeah,
here I was on the top of the world. I just co-starred in a TV series for 12 years, almost 400 episodes, great ratings the whole time. It ends, and it, never even really dawned on me, that weekend I went, wow, I have this hunch. I may be back to square one. I never even thought about it. And I remember the following week, my agent called and said, I know it's kind of early and, maybe you're just decompressing, but how'd you
yeah,
like to go out on an interview? And I was like, well,
yeah,
uh,
sure, why not?
yeah. I go, well, what's it for? I'm thinking he's going to say, well, there's a lead in a new series and they want you, or,
Yeah.
you're up for this movie. He goes, well, it's for a McDonald's commercial. And then we talk about a kick in the face. I'm like, I did all this work to go out on a McDonald's commercial is the first thing I go on after my 3 cents in. But then this thing, like, just I had this thought, I thought, you can't really, you just got to do everything if you're back to square one. And I went, yes, yes, I'll go. And I went, and it's like you said, I got there was probably 300 guys that looked just like me going in the building,
They look
and I
just like
won't.
me, and
Right.
now the
So,
next day it's
what
supposed
are
to be
the
less,
odds?
there's more, and you're like, "Gee," yeah, and you're going
It was disconcerting, to walk in there and
yeah,
see yourself
to say the least.
200 times because they wanted a guy that, had blonde hair and had kind of a little bit longer hair, and that's what they wanted. And I had to read the lines, put a pickle in it, mayonnaise and a tomato on a bun or whatever it was. And in fact, I think it was either that commercial or one just like it that happened very shortly thereafter that I got paired with another actor and he just got to town, I think, and it was Anson Williams. And we've been friends,
Oh,
ever
from,
ever since
Happy
it.
Days,
Yeah, from Happy.
Potsy.
Yeah, he
Potsy,
did.
right?
I don't even think he had an agent back then. Somehow he
Potsy doesn't need
talked
an
his
agent,
way
man.
in. Well, he finally got one. That's another funny story. Didn't have an agent, and he crashed an agency and did a sit-in until somebody would see him and find this guy. They're like ready to call the guard and throw him out. And he goes, "Look, I came out here. I just wanted to do this. Can I just read for you? Do something." And the guy said, come back to my office." He goes, "I want to talk to you." So went in, and he goes, "Wow, at least I got inside the office." And so I guess this was the junior agent. So he says, "Look, I tell you what I'm going to do. If there's a part if you can go out, if you can get this part, we'll take you into the agency." And so he said, "Well, what's the part?" And he goes, "Well, you're going to play a high school guy who gets hit by a football or something, has a concussion and dies." So he goes, "Oh, okay, I can do that." So they sent Anson out on this. And he said he went on the interview, and I think I think it was either an own, what was that called? Uh, Marcus Welby is what I think it was. And
Marcus oh,
so
I think it's Bubbles when I
yeah,
think of Marcus
yeah.
Welby.
And so he said at the audition, the guy was the director's like walking all around him and talking to him and looking at him.
Yeah.
Um, Anyway, it might have been an Owen Marshall, Counselor of Love. I think that is what it was, which was a pretty big show like Marcus Welby back then. But
All right.
anyway, he gets the part. Well, I mean, talk about a good way to start. He didn't, he was in it a little bit, dies, and then it's out. But the director was Steven Spielberg.
Oh, was it really? Spielberg did
I
that.
mean, can you believe that? I mean,
No.
your first part in Hollywood, you're directed by Steven
Yeah,
Spielberg.
that's not nerve-wracking or anything. I mean, he's a
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you something, 'cause this is like I said, I ended like Jersey style here. If I walked into a place, and I saw all these people, and then you're there for an audition and you're sitting in the green room or doing whatever you have to do and you're waiting and all these people if it was me and I've done what you've done and been that successful as a little person, I would have walked right up to past everybody by and said, "Hey, I'm Chip Douglas, bitch." I go right to the front, you know?
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. You'll never be asked back. There's certain
Yeah,
things
but
you
you're
can
Chip
do,
Douglas,
and
man. You're like Teflon. Nothing's
well,
gonna
that
stick
was
to you.
always a problem because I'd walk in, and there'd be some 20, maybe 28, 30-year-old casting person who somehow got that job. And of course, 10 years before, 20 years before, they were
Yeah,
watching My Three Sons when it was first on.
right.
And they were like in awe of my presence, which made it kind of awkward for me,
I mean,
because
oh,
I'm just
Chip
thinking,
Douglas
man,
has
I'm
entered
just
the
trying to get a part here. I'm just trying to get work.
right.
And meanwhile, this person's falling all over themselves, or the director,
Really?
or the producer. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kinda cool, though. Like, you might not get the part, but they definitely want an autograph. It's like.
My AirPod
I can hear you.
gone.
I can hear you.
Hold on.
You're good.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can
okay. My
I can hear
earpods
you no
died.
matter what. There's every time you say that you're gone, we can see and hear you, no problem.
Oh, I couldn't tell what was going on,
I
but
was
my
going like this again. I was like, "Look up, Stan, look up."
oh yeah, no, my earpods. I was trying to show you these
Oh,
AirPods.
yeah.
They died.
Oh, well, that's just, you know what? It's okay, but I think people get the picture that, it's just like any other business, I would
Yeah.
say, as far as the more prepared you're going to be and the insight that somebody like yourself can give to a young person, male, female, you know, older, younger, because everybody goes into different ages. Not everybody starts at 6 years old like you did. You were lucky like that because you said, but I like the fact you didn't try to candy coat it. You said, you're not going to sit there and try to be like all altruistic. Go, oh no, it was all hard work and deep design. No, it took a little bit of luck too. Right place, right time. At least you were honest, and we could
Yeah.
use a lot more of that because you're not going to try to blow sunshine up someone's ass. These people,
No,
this
it's
is
like a
means
ladder.
everything to them, and you want
I
to be straight with them, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
I liken it to a ladder. You're just trying to get on the ladder, then you're just pulling yourself up. Your whole life, you're pulling yourself up one rung at a time. That's all it is. And most of us hit the middle of the ladder, and that's it. But you should be grateful for that. Very few people make it up to that top rung. The Brad Pitts, the Tom
yeah,
Hanks, that took extraordinary talent and extraordinary luck, and luck of working with certain people. It doesn't mean you can't get jobs, but the luck of working with people who are also on that upward trajectory sometimes can accelerate your career or put you in a very envious
yeah,
position.
that would be a good thing. And all right, so final thought for Mr. Stan Livingston.
Final
If
thoughts is, well, whatever you do in life, be prepared for it. It's just
well, if I'm a
you
young
try and
actor,
learn every aspect you can of whatever it is you're trying to do, the history of it,
yeah, you're. I
all
mean,
the
you're.
different angles of looking at it, and
Mhm.
you apply your own creativity to that. So hopefully you can do something that somebody hasn't done before.
Yeah, I mean, if so, I'm a young or an older or whatever it is that, and I'm going to go out to New York or I'm going to go to California, and I have a dream. If
Oh,
that, do you see a young Stan Livingston? Do you, when someone says that to you, you see a young person, let's just say for whatever, and and they walk in.
mhm.
Do you feel that at any point in time you see you 60 something years ago?
Yeah, you see that hunger in their eyes, and
Okay.
that they want to be accepted by the people in the room, and
They're
hopefully
nervous
they
and
get the part, and hopefully, yeah, they're nervous, or sometimes you have to have them do the scene a couple times to get rid of their nervousness or talk to them. I feel I owe it to them to talk to them, to kind of talk them off a ledge so they're not quite so nervous. And
talk 'em off the
I'm
ledge.
just like another
Goodness.
guy, hey, I'm just doing my job and you're doing your job. That's the way I look at it.
Right. And like I said, at the end of the day, but you can look back if you never did another thing, Stan, and you could just look back and reflect on like going down memory lane, memory lane, which is kind of what we did when we were looking at all the accolades and your history on
Yeah.
the website. Can you honestly say that I've done everything because you got that Western in there. That was a sticking point, but you nailed the Western. I remember. Can you say that you're happy with what you've done? You're content, even if you never do another thing, just with your life? Uh,
No, I can't say that because,
no?
you know, I'm always like, what's next? What's around that corner? What's over that hill kind of guy. I don't look back
Okay.
much, over it's like my 3 cents. I know I did those 380 episodes. Probably I saw maybe 50 of them, because I'm not interested in looking at it. I just, as long as I can stand up and breathe and work, I'm hoping something that I'm not expecting comes around the corner because I'm still trying. That I think is what you have to learn if you're going into this business. You can't be caught up on what you did and stand on your laurels. I
Gotta
mean, I'm
keep
glad
moving,
I
right?
did it and I'm proud of it,
Yeah.
but I still want to do stuff. So
A Rolling Stone collects
yeah,
no
I'm
moss.
just
You're
like a
constantly
rolling stone waiting, trying to illuminate the road ahead and maybe
nah,
say,
you're
well,
good, man.
maybe I missed something, or maybe I wasn't as aggressive as I needed to be, or I missed, you're just always challenging yourself to rise to the occasion or to work. I have no, I guess, sometimes people look at the movie industry, okay, there's commercials, TV, movies. I don't have any of that. It's like whatever comes next comes next. If it's a play, if I'm directing a commercial, if I'm directing a documentary, if I'm editing somebody else's film, if I'm editing one of my own things,
And you
I
can
like to
jump into
do
the
all
scene.
that stuff, so I don't mind doing it.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for a specific role in a specific genre or anything like you go, "Oh, directing, fine. Producing, fine. Acting, fine." Like, you can hit on
Yeah.
anyone, and that everybody can't say that. That's experience, that's life
Well, yeah,
experience.
that's why I got into that. To
Yeah,
me, after my 3 sons ended,
well-rounded.
I used to sit there and sit next to my phone and hoped it would ring and it would be my agent. And I'd say, man, I can't do this. I need to make stuff happen. And that's why I formed that company with that guy. And, we were just doing our own thing and we didn't have to wait for the phone. We were the guys calling other people. So yeah, I'd
Oh,
rather
well.
be in those shoes than the actor. And like I said, there's a way to kind of amp that up a little bit as an actor without offending anybody, and we kind of teach actors those skills, how you do that, how you be politely aggressive, to get what you want.
Well, very eloquently put. I have one, favor to ask you real quick, and we're gonna test your acting chops really quick with a little bit of a memory quiz here. That's right, you don't get out of the Mean Machine alive here. No, I'm kidding. So,
Is
here's
this
what we
about
got.
Fatty Arbuckle?
No, it is not. The amount of backlight that comes off of these monitors, I've got 7 of them, and it's just, like, crazy. So, it would be, um,
All right, yeah, so it'll be,
"Hi,
hi,
this
I'm
is
Stan
Stan Livingston."
Livingston. You probably
Right,
remember me from Chip, from My Three Sons, and you're listening to the Mean Machine Radio at 88.6 WGAT
radio show. Yeah,
radio show.
so you ready? We're gonna do it right now. You good to go, Stan?
Good to go.
All right. And so I'm gonna say something because then I'm gonna come in with the edit later. I'm gonna be like, "Well, we thank you for being here this afternoon with the great Mr. Stan the Man Livingston. And you know what? Instead of me saying goodbye to everybody tonight, we're going to let Stan do it. Stan, take it away.
All right. Hey, you're listening to Stanley Livingston. I played Chip on My Three Sons, and you're listening to the Mean Machine Radio at 88.6 WGAT.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Thanks, Stan. Good night,
You got it,
everybody.
man.